All right, glad you made it, everyone. Chris Petri, I'm so thankful you're here. We're going to get into it. We're going to do our watercolor painting today. Is going to be Wet and Wet. Lighthouse. Let's get into it. Lighthouse, Wet and Wet. I'll tell you what, watercolor painting is great for the artist because it's got so many limitless techniques and approaches. You're just guaranteed success no matter what you do. Other mediums, I have to say, are definitely more challenging, more difficult. If you're here and you're doing watercolor painting, you've picked the right medium to paint in and do your art in, because it's just a great, and I'm going to show you how great it is. So here, take this tip. I got a tip from a great professional watercolor artist one time who told me 60% of watercolor is just letting the watercolor paint and water do the work for you. So there you have it. You only have to do 40% of the work. 60% of the other portion of watercolor painting is done for you. You just have to let it do its own thing. Let's watch it happen right now. Okay, so now I went back to my library of books, and here we go. I picked out a beautiful lighthouse picture. I love lighthouses and lighthouse scenes. Always have. My first watercolor painting was a lighthouse when I was 10 years old. My mom helped me make it, and I'm eternally grateful to my mom. She got me started in my watercolor painting journey a long time ago, even though I left it behind for many, many years and didn't start back up again until I was probably 40 years old, I guess, but whatever. Hey, it works for me. Okay, here we go, lighthouse. You could pick any lighthouse picture you want. I went online and looked up this one. This one's Tarpaulin Cove Lighthouse. And this is in Massachusetts. This picture's from 1818, actually. I'm going to set it across from me, and I'm just going to use it for reference. Here today we're going to do our technique, which is wet and wet. So with wet and wet technique, you're going to really have a fun time with it, because really the water and the paint is going to do most of the work for you. You just really have to get a couple ideas down on your paper, a little quick sketch, and you're off and running. Here we go. Let's go. All right. We're looking at our photograph across from us, and we're just saying, what do we have to do here? We'll bring it back. Well, we look at this photograph and we say, if we break this down into thirds, so 1, 2, 3 thirds. 1/3 is the foreground, which looks like some grass and weeds and interesting little field here. The second third is the lighthouse and the house here. We might not do this house. We might just keep it more simple and do the lighthouse by itself. And then the second, and then the last final third is just the sky, really. So basically, this is really, you can see, it's pretty simple. It's 2/3 sky and 1/3 foreground here with the field and some grass and weeds and things like that again. So really, let's use this. Let's even simplify it more. We'll sort of kind of, we'll do this. We'll take this photograph and we'll crop it down. Again, use cropping. Use cropping all the time as an artist. Always think of that. You always want to crop things. If you're doing reference material, crop it down, make it easier. If you create a large painting, you can crop it down and make it smaller and just zone in on something you like about your painting, a smaller section. So I'm big on cropping things, just like a photographer. Photographers crop all the time. So let's be photographers when we're watercolor artists too. All right, let's have some fun. We're going to put this across from us here. I'm working at a table. I'm working on a nice little art table here in my studio. I have some Arches rough paper taped off, of course, so we can take this tape off and have a nice border on our paper. And my board's probably like a 20% angle, very little angle. Just a little bit of angle so that the water does kind of trickle down a little bit on my paper like this way. And that's it. Then we have our palette. And I meant to say, hey, If you like this video, hit the like button. Even if you can't, hit the like button now, because I know you're going to like it. So just do it now. Come on. All right. All right. So this is another, you can look up one of my videos. Just look up Chris PETRI, My Palette. If you look up Chris PETRI, My Palette, you'll see all the colors I use. That's all you have to do. It's so simple. You just get your colors the same as I have. And then whenever you're working and you're doing paintings that I'm working on my channel, you just use the same colors and you'll just memorize them eventually. And then you'll just be able to, you won't even have to think about it. You'll just know right away what the colors are when you're watching the videos. Okay, here we go. We said 1/3. 1/3. Let's use a marker. Make this easier. Okay, 1/3. 1/3. 1/3. Let's make our design easy. Okay, let's go. 1/3 is the ground, the field, the grass, the weeds, happy field here. Okay, and then we were saying the second and third thirds is the sky, basically. Okay, then we're going to say, all right, where are we going to put our lighthouse? We're doing our lighthouse. Here we go. We'll take a picture. We'll take a look at the picture again. So I'm gonna make it easier for myself, and I want to make it easier for you too. Crop out that building. Don't even bother with that building. Just crop that out of the picture and use it like this. Okay. Now, where are we going to put the lighthouse? Well, if we put it exactly center of the page, it might be a little boring, right? Right in the center. Let's shift it over a little bit. Okay. Let's shift it over a little like that. Yeah, right? You know, not right in the center. Let's move it over right there. All right. Okay. There we have it. We don't want to always put everything in the center. It kind of looks boring. Okay, so we look and say, where's the center of our page? Here. Center, center. This is our... So we just make sure we don't want to put our lighthouse exactly center. So let's put it a little bit to the left or to the right. I like it to the right a little more. So I'm just going to put the edge of the lighthouse here. Okay. And I just got the idea that the lighthouse is a little wider at the bottom and a little thinner at the top. So it's got a little bit of an angle to it. What also helps really great, if you can, is sometimes you can just do a couple practice runs. No big deal. I take a piece of art paper, scrap, and I just practice a couple times. Okay, the lighthouse is like this. Not really. It's sort of like this. It's more cone-shaped, like that. So I just practice a few times, and then I get it. There we go. Okay, and then I just a couple lines for the... There's some railings around the lighthouse, almost like a cage. And then here, again, I'm making a little bit of a... This is not quite a straight line. It's a little bit of an arc to it, a little bit of an arch to it. That's the top. And that's basically like maybe a half moon. And then another little top piece to it there. Very simple. You don't even have to get that detailed. And that's it. That's your lighthouse. Dark over here. Sometimes if we're going to paint it anyway and it's going to be a dark color, you can just color it in with your pencil too, just to get an idea. Like that. They're perfect. We have a door over here, which is a rectangle on a little bit of an angle. Perfect. Another rectangle here, which is a window up top. And there's another window down here, like so. All right. How easy is that? Then we just say, all right, here there's a inlet. It's like a bay that comes in here, so we're going to leave that strip of water here. And then there's another hill in the background, like that. And then for whatever reason, it kind of gets thinner here. So it must thin out over here, like that. This is the water. This is the ground. If you have to shade a little couple spots, do it. No big deal. If you're putting pencil lines on you're going to paint over it anyway. No big deal. All right. So we have an inlet. If you make a couple spots that are not good, just kneaded eraser. No crumbs. Don't want any crumbs on your watercolor paper. Kneaded eraser. That's important. Okay. There we go. So we have our water. And I'm not happy with this. Kneaded eraser. Lighthouse here. Window here. And let's make that higher up like that. And this is the darker. There we go. So there's some more water there. And then there's some sailboats in here. Make those sailboats. A couple little boats here. Make some lines. That's really it. And then here we have some fences. And that makes for some interesting details. A couple lines. A couple more lines here. There's a rock wall here. We're not going to get into too much detail, but just so we have a little bit of detail here, in case we want to add some little spots of detail with these fence posts, like here, like that. Perfect, good enough. Sky is going to be simple, and we're all set. Now, let's get into it. We're going to use plenty of fresh, clean water with a square brush. This is a Recab Pure Ox Israel. So this is the my square brush here. And then we're just going to add tons of water. We'll go with just lots of water. Flood the paper. Flood the paper with water. Brush it on there, nice. Have fun with it. Have fun putting the water on the paper. That'll get you really prepped to do your painting. You're going to have fun with this. This is a simple painting. You're going to let the paint and the water do the work. And you can just have fun. The painting will create itself. Woohoo! We're having a good time. Look at that. Lots of water. Flood the paper with water. Just let it go on there. Don't worry. Don't worry. Nothing's going to happen with lots of water. It'll make the painting better. Look at that. Okay. And then another coat. One more. Flood the water paper. There we go. Lots of water. All right. Now the paper is thoroughly soaked. Paper towel, and then you just give it some time, let the water run down. The water's going to run down naturally because we have a little bit of an angle to the paper on the table here. So have a little bit of angle to your paper. Don't leave it flat, totally flat. Let it angle a little bit. Prop your paper up, or your sketchbook, whatever you use to paint. Keep a little bit of an angle on it, going towards you this way. Okay, I'm just going to wipe up the excess water that's flowing down the paper, and we're almost ready to paint. So I'm going to wipe up the excess water that was on there. There we go. And then I keep my paper towel handy, and we'll let this water, you'll notice that it'll drift, the water will flow down a little more over the next couple minutes. And then we just pick up that water like so, with a little bit of a paper towel. There we go. All right. Now, let's get in there and do some painting. Now, the key with this is I'm going to go in a little bit sooner than maybe you might want to do, because we're making a video here. I can't take hours and hours to do this video. You'll shut it off. All right. So the idea is when the paper is really shiny and glossy, you're going to want to wait a little more. But once you see the paper start to get satin looking, almost like it's starting to dry a little bit, where the glossy finish goes away, that's when you're going to start going in and adding your paint. Okay, French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, a touch of burnt umber, to tone down that blue a little bit. And look at that. Like I said, this is all the work is going to be the paper and the paint. There we go. Look at that. Perfect. Make it a little darker. Remember, watercolor always lightens up. About half as light as it goes on. Remember that as a watercolor artist, when you put your paint on, it's going to dry 50% lighter. So you always usually go darker. Then you really think what you're going to need. Okay, look at that. See how the water and the paint is doing the work itself with the paper. I'm not doing anything. I'm just threw on some paint here and that's it. A little bit of orange. A little bit of cadmium orange just along the horizon line here. Just like that. And now, as we said, a little bit of blue there. The paint and the water are doing the work. Let's go a little darker, because like we said, you need a little darker. Maybe a little bit of there we go. Make it exciting. Splash a little bit. Some splashing is good. There we go. Look. Perfect. Okay, now, again, we take our paper towel, get some of that excess water up from the base here of the painting, the bottom of the painting. Just try to keep an eye on your water. If you see water starting to build up and puddle up, you know, get a little bit of paper towel or tissue and just kind of blot it up a little bit. You can also blot up on your paper and your sky if you want to lighten up a couple areas. Maybe I'll lighten up by the lighthouse here. There we go. All right. Then we have a dark field here in the foreground. Let's go with burnt umber and olive green. Look at that. Beautiful. Use a little bit of the sky color too. And just get some color in there. Perfect. A little bit of burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, yellow ochre. There we go. Put the paint on there and let it do its work, and there it goes. Look at that. There we go. Perfect. Now it's a little darker along here. Let's go with some French ultramarine blue. Same color, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. Make it a little darker. That's all, a little darker. Look at that. Perfect. So we're just adding a little line in there. A darker line of rocks. There's some rocks here. And some darker grass and weeds and things. So we make that a little darker. Perfect. Let that be. Now, we're looking good. Let's let that do its magic. You can blot up a little bit if you think you want a little bit lighter. This will dry a lot lighter though. Guaranteed that this is going to dry lighter. This always dries lighter. Watercolor. So you can already see how it's lightened up a lot in the sky, right? Does that make sense? Watercolor dries lighter than it is when you put it on at first. Always go darker. And you always know with watercolor, here's a huge tip. Powerful tip with watercolor. If you go straight into your paint without using any water, that's going to dry just like that. So when you don't add water to your watercolors and you just go straight into your palette, and right to your paper like that, anywhere, it's going to stay this color or tonal value, which is the actual light or darkness of it. So that's a great thing to remember. Whenever you go into your palette and you use straight paint without any water, your paint is going to dry just as you put it on, right out of the palette like that. Once you add water to it, it's going to lighten up. Does that make sense? So that when you do that and add water to it, now you automatically know it's going to lighten up not only this much, 50% more. At this point here, when you add water to your watercolor paint, it's going to dry 50% more than what you see right here. So it's eventually going to be half as light as this. But when you go in and add straight paint, it's going to stay the same. It won't change. All right. This is looking really good. I add a little couple splashes. Let's speed up the drying process. If you're at home, in your studio, remember, let this dry naturally. Go have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, relax, do a couple things you have to do, come back in an hour and it'll be dry, and then you can continue working on this. But right now, this is all you can really do at this point. Otherwise, it's going to get real messy. All right, but I'm going to go with the blow dryer right now, speed up the process. Right, that's like watching paint dry. I know, that's painful. Sorry about that, but we have to dry it a little bit here to get our work done. Okay, now we'll go back in here. Let's get some more. There we go. A little bit of green, olive green, mixed with the brown and the French ultramarine blue. We just want to get some more of that earth colors there, some beautiful earth tones. Okay. And let's keep this clean paper over here. That's our water over there. Let's keep that light. And there we go. Look at that. Looks beautiful with the earth colors here, the browns and the blues. We mixed the, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna. We used some yellow ochre, made our nice beautiful earth colors over here, and then a little bit of olive green mixed in there too, and then more olive green here. So we use more olive green here in this grassy area, and that looks really nice. And then we'll splash a couple splashes, and then let's use that olive green too over here in the sky. There's a little bit of a shadow here. Okay, that is the light. So let's just add a little bit of that olive green over here to this side. So remember, put your light insignia whenever you're working. Light's coming from over here. So put your light insignia whenever you work so you know where your light's coming from. So this one way when you're working and you're trying to get some shadows in there, you have everything all set, ready to go. Look at that. Okay, just that little bit of subtle, shadowing. Maybe a little bit of cerulean blue. That subtle shadowing on the lighthouse gives it form and shape. Just like that. You just add some water to it to make it soft. It gives it that round look to it. Perfect. Okay. And let's get that dark over here. Let's add some blue to that mixture we had. So we just, again, use the same mixtures you have on your palette. I just added a little bit of cobalt blue to the burnt umber and French ultramarine blue with a little bit of green, olive green, so that we can get that distant short. Look at that distant shoreline. How beautiful. Perfect. Look at that. Okay, now we're building some distance into our painting, some three-dimensionality with that hill in the background there. Maybe a little bit of mineral violet, purple color, just in there too. You add a little purple in there, a little blue, and right away you build in that little bit of that misty, cool, distant feeling back there to put in that distance. Leave a little bit of white paper once in a while. Little spots of white paper look good. There you go. So now we have our distant shoreline. Look at that. How easy was that? Again, the paper and the water is doing all the work. Right? Excellent. I knew you could do this. It's really easy. And I'm going to just add a little more dark to the bottom here, to the shoreline. So the shoreline area I make a little darker, and then I let the lighter purple color there stay at the top of that little distant hill there. Like that. We're almost completed. The only thing we have to do now is do some details to the lighthouse and we're all set. Was that not easy? Okay, for some of our details here, we're going to go to our needlepoint brush, and we will just get our darks. We're going to mix up some darker darks. Now, when you mix up your darker darks, again, I said this before, this is another big tip. When you're going to mix your darkest darks for your final details in your painting, you want to go with almost zero water and all paint from the tube. See how I'm doing this here? I'm taking this little small section and going straight in, no water, just the paint. Maybe a tiny bit of water there that's left over at the bottom of the palette here, but see that? See how dark that is? That's not going to go lighter because I'm using straight paint. That'll give you those darks you want. And then now I'm just going to do the quick. We'll do some darks here. We're going to do some fence posts here. Perfect. More paint, a little more water. Let's do some sailboats out here. And then the sailboats are just a couple spots of color for the sailboats, and then a couple lines for the masts, just like that. That's all you have to do. Not too many, just a couple, tiny few. That's all perfect. Then we're going to do our darks here for the door, for the lighthouse. And here, let everything do itself. Let the paint and the water do its work, and the paper. Just get the rough idea of things. No fussing over the details of it. Okay, that's a little bit lighter. in the picture. I'm looking at my reference photo, so I just blot that out. And yeah, a couple of splashes more with that white, titanium white with a little bit of yellow ochre. Look at that. Perfect. Now, for the ultimate olive green. And some cadmium lemon yellow. Smooth that in a little tiny bit of color, some real high intensity color in a few spots. And maybe some orange. And some cad red. High intensity colors in a few little locations on a painting like this can really make it more exciting. So I'm just doing that little bit of high intensity color there. And that really dresses it up a little bit. And then a little more green. Perfect. And then maybe, how about a little bit of some Viridian green. Some Viridian green for that water. Just to make that water a little more, to sing out a little bit. You can do that. Just a little bit here and there. Not too much. Just a little. Maybe a little cerulean blue. Some more cerulean blue. Again, what I'm getting at here is add just the tiniest bit of high intensity colors to a more limited palette style painting, which is really what we did here. We kept things really limited as far as our palette. We didn't get like too wild and crazy with colors. You just add those little bit of high intensity colors in a few little strategic locations, and that really makes things, you know, go beyond, you know, the ordinary or mundane watercolor. There we go. And then here, since we have used quite a bit of color, I would go in and get some of that green and just put some green in the sky a little bit to harmonize everything, because that green really ties in with these earth colors down here. So that might be a little bit like you're thinking, well, that might not be a good idea maybe, but you just put the little bit of that green, olive green in the sky, and maybe even a little bit of the burnt umber. Like that. Just the very most minimal amount, and it ties the whole painting together in one cohesive, harmonious composition, which is what you want, so that everything ties together and works together as a whole. There we go. All right, everyone, thanks so much for coming by. Again, if you like this painting and this video, please thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. We make great videos every week. If you hit the subscribe button, you'll get our videos every week coming in. If you hit the notification bell, that little bell sign, that means you'll be notified even before just as the video is coming out, so you'll know not to forget to check that out as we're painting a new video. And again, have fun, everyone. Happy painting. Enjoy your watercolors, and we'll be back in just a few more days. Bye-bye.